Hello. So basically what we're going to do today is build a staircase. And for that what I did is I created this step, this first step. I'm not going to explain how I did it. I'm just going to go quickly through it. I just created two arcs, okay, with the arc node. And with that, I put the same angle for each of them and different radius, so we can control how big, the dimensions of the step. Okay, and then I connected both arcs with these lines, and then I create a surface and extrude it. And we can, of course, as well control the height of the step. So what we're going to do is create a list of steps that move along the z axis, and at the same time they rotate to create this kind of staircase. So the first thing that I'm gonna get is a series node. Okay, so I'm gonna type here series, and here it is. And what this node does is creates a list of numbers. Okay, we can control the beginning of the list by connecting a slider on the start. We can control the step or the distance in between the each number, and we can control how many numbers we want on that list. Okay, so I'm going to create a slider, for example, to control the step. Let's create a slider that goes from 1 until, for instance, 20. I'm going to copy that same slider and duplicate it to control the amount of numbers that go into that list. Okay, at the start I'm not going to touch it because I want this list to start from 0. So as default it already starts from 0. So if we want to see what's going on inside this node, or what's coming out from the output, we can always use the panel node, which is like a board. Okay, and we can connect it to it. This node, doesn't do anything at all. It just helps us to visualize what's going on in here. So we have only one count on the list, and if we start dragging this slider, we can see we have a longer list. And if we change the step, we can see that the distance of each number of that list changes. Okay, so that being said, what I'm gonna do is create a list of extrusions that move along the z-axis. So for that, I'm gonna get the move node. Okay, and what this does basically, it's moves the geometry along a direction. Okay, so the motion that we want, for that we need a z-axis. We need it to move along z vector. It goes here, and the geometry we want to move is this one. So we can see they are overlapping the two steps. One is represented by this node, and the other one is represented by this node. So what I'm doing is moving this node, but I can hide this one. Let's hide it actually, and now we can only see the one that is represented by the move node. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is connect that list of numbers here, and we can see we have a list of steps. Okay, The other thing we could do to make sure that these steps don't overlap each other is control the step by the same slider that controls the height of each step, which is this one. Okay, so what we can do is take another cable and connect it to the step, and that way they are always the same height, and the next step is the height of the step. Okay, what we also could do is just create a sum. For instance, let's put +1, and what this will do is create a this node that is the zoom node, the addition node, sorry. But as I did it, the B is always going to be 1, because that's what I put, and it's going to add 1 to whatever I connect to the A input. So I'm going to connect this, and then I'm going to connect this. So there's always going to be a distance of 1 on each step. It's going to be adding one unit to each step. The next thing that we're going to do is spin those steps, okay? And how are we going to do it? We have a rotate node, and the way this node works, it needs a geometry to rotate. It needs an angle. We want to rotate it. It works with the radians, so we need to change that to degrees. By right-clicking on angle, we can change this to degrees, so we can work with degrees. And then we need to define the plane where it's rotating. It's defined by default on the XY plane, so we're going to leave it as it is. And the geometry we want to rotate is this one. Okay, and now we have the same thing that we had before. We have overlapping the move geometry, okay, which I'm going to hide, with the rotate geometry. And what's happening is that all of these steps are being rotated at the same time. Okay, so what we need is a list of angles. Okay, so I'm gonna create another series. Okay, and we want it to start from 0, angle 0, and then the step, let's say for instance, let's create a slider that goes from 15 degrees until 45, for instance. And then let's create another slider from 1 until 20, and that will go to the count. Sorry, okay. And we're gonna connect that to the angle. And as we can see, nothing is happening. Okay, why nothing is happening? Okay, basically now we have only 1 in the count, and as we can see, we are creating that staircase properly, okay, but at some point all the steps overlap each other on this axis. Okay, so we need to make sure that the amount of numbers on each list that goes inside of this node have the same amount of items. What's happening here basically is that if I put my mouse, or if I get a panel, let's get a panel, see what's coming out from here. Okay, we have 10 items, and what's coming out from the other series that goes to the rotate, we have only 3 items. So basically what Grasshopper does with the lists is that it connects, I'm going to put each list next to each other. So what's happening inside this node, sorry, I'm going to drag it here. So what's happening inside here is that this item, or the first item, the 0 item, is connecting to the 0 item from the other list. And then 1 is being connected to 1. Sorry, 2 is connected to 2, 3 to 3. And then, if they don't have the same amount of items, the longer list is gonna connect all the remaining items to the last item of the shorter list, which is what's going on here. Okay, that's why they are overlapping each other. So what we need to make sure is that both of these lists have the same amount of items. And to do that, what we need is connect the same slider that goes to the count of one of those lists to the other one. Okay, and that way they are not, we have exactly the same amount of items in each list, which is what's happening here. The other thing that we could do, this would be more like a design thing, is that if we created this these arcs that define the step with this angle. This slider controls the angle. Okay, so what we can do is connect this same slider so they don't overlap to the step, and this one we can delete it. And that way, if we change the size of one step and make them longer, they're not going to overlap each other. So this way we can control, as we created this step, we can control the angle. I'm going to put this in a better position. We can control the size of the step, as we mentioned before. We can control the height, and we can control the amount of steps of this ladder. Okay, so this is basically how the lists work on Grasshopper. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.